I'm Bette Hoover. I'm a Quaker, I'm a feminist, I'm an activist, a grandmother, and I've been a member of NOW since 1980, actually. Back in the 80s, I lived in South Jersey, and we started a rape crisis center there. We're working to pass the ERA. I've been arrested numerous times over the years, so I'm one of the nasty women. I worked as a director of the American Friends Service Committee for over a decade as a director of the Washington, D.C. office. It's the social justice arm of Quakers. We received the Nobel Peace Prize in 1947. That was the year I was born. So Quakers are also known as Friends, or the Religious Society of Friends. How many of you are familiar with Quakers? Oh, well then, I don't really talk. So I'm pleased, and when I was asked to talk about some Quaker women history, I just really felt honored, because it's very much a part of my Quaker community. And even if you didn't know much about Quakers, you probably know some names of women that are Quakers, like Bonnie Raitt, Joan Baez, and Jessamine West, and Judi Dench, and a whole list of people, and me. But I'm going to tell you about four specifically. I was asked to pick out a few women and look at the Quaker roots from a few women. I'm going to talk to you about Elise Boulding, Alice Paul, Lucretia Mott, and Susan B. Anthony, very briefly, because I only have a few minutes, right, Linda? So Elise Boulding was a Norwegian-born Quaker that was nominated for a Nobel Peace Prize in 1990. In her obituary in the New York Times on July 4th, 2010 said, Elise Boulding, peace scholar, dies at 89. The article described Dr. Boulding as a pacifist, a feminist, a scholar, a sociologist, a prolific writer, and a futurist. Boulding is credited with helping to establish the academic field of peace and conflict resolution studies, and also in starting the U.S. Institute for Peace. One of my favorite Elise Boulding quotes, Elise the sociologist, is, "We of the Western world have created a myth called the evolution of mankind. One of the many strange things about this myth is that it does not include women. The history of humankind has been written as if it were the history of Western man, white man, I might add. This elimination of most of the human race from the historical record shrinks our human identity." Elise Boulding advocated for women to be included in the highest diplomacy of the land and believed that it was the long unheard and ignored voices of women that could save the world. I agree. She reminded us that even though among humans we have a tendency toward violence, there is an equal and maybe even more powerful possibility for peaceful behavior. That was Elise the sociologist. One of her many books was The Undersided History, a View of Women Through Time. So going backwards about 100 years, in January of 1917, Alice Paul, who had been born in 1885, and three other women wearing fancy ladies' hats, proper hats, picketed the White House, carrying signs and messages to President Wilson. It was a time just before the Great War, but the crowd that gathered knew that they were fighting for women's right to vote. As Alice Paul was ushered into the police wagon, she was heard to say, "I am being imprisoned not because I obstructed traffic, but because I pointed out to the president the fact that he is obstructing the progress of democracy and justice at home, while Americans fight for it abroad." Since Alice Paul was the leader and the organizer of the protests and pickets, She got additional jail time and was sent to a workhouse in Virginia. Some of this information I've learned about these women I hadn't known before. For example, she immediately started a hunger strike because of the dismal conditions in the prison there that the women that she was being kept in. And they then shipped her off to a psychiatric hospital and violently force-fed her. This is a little bit of history then of the women's right, the right to vote. Over the next 18 months, about 1,000 women were called the Silent Sentinels, joined the protests in front of the White House. They were carrying signs that said things like, "Mr. President, how long must women wait for liberty?" Many of them were violently attacked, and when they were put in prison, were severely beaten. Because of press coverage about their vicious attacks, and also because of the continued demonstrations in front of the White House, President Wilson eventually changed his tune and relented and signed decided to support the suffrage amendment. So going back a few more years, Alice Paul in 1913 founded the Women's Peace Party. She referred to the women as the mother half of humanity. She and the other activists criticized men for turning to war too easily without weighing the mighty cost to people and to the environment. Alice, as you probably know, is credited with authoring the Equal Rights Amendment, and she believed that winning the ballot would not be enough. Women needed equal rights. Alice Paul was raised in a Quaker community in New Jersey, where everyone she knew treated women equally. She dressed in the plain clothes of Quakers, and she didn't call anybody, refused to address people by titles. A friend once described her as a little thin as a wisp of hay, but nevertheless she was a strong athlete and a very strong woman. In 1901, she had enrolled in Swarthmore College, which had been started by Quakers and was a place where men and women were being admitted equally. Upon graduation, she moved to the east side of New York City and found immigrants were living in dire poverty. So she decided that social reform was really what was needed and got her master's degree in political science in 1907. So another one of my favorite Alice Paul quotes is, "I never saw a day when I stopped working for women's rights." That would speak for all of us, wouldn't it? She credited her Quaker background for her long and determined struggle for equality and justice. So going back another 50 years, on July 13th, 1848, 5 women sat around a mahogany tea table in upstate New York planning a revolution. 6 days later, the revolution began in the small town of Seneca Falls. The world's first women's rights convention was held, and a Declaration of Women's Rights declared that, mind you, "We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men and women are created equally." 68 ladies and 32 gentlemen signed that amendment, that Declaration of Sentiments. The backlash was vicious. Both the press and the clergy called the Seneca Falls 100 dangerous fanatics, and they called the women desexed females and batty old maids. So the convention that at Seneca Falls that I mentioned on that day in July 1848 is considered the birthplace of women's rights movement in this country. So 4 of the 5 women around that tea table that day that planned the revolution were Quakers. The 5th was Elizabeth Kate Stanton, and the only reason she was there is that she came to visit her old friend, Lucretia Mott. Lucretia had already been working for women's rights for 40 years. Lucretia Mott was born in 1793 and was a major figure in the reform movements of the 19th century. She was thought to be a century ahead of her time. She devoted her life to the abolition of slavery, to women's rights, to school and prison reforms, to peace, and to religious tolerance. Her home in Philadelphia was a stop on the Underground Railroad. She was a founder of the Quaker College, Swarthmore College in Philadelphia, and the College of Medicine, Female Medical College, and the Moore College of Art. This woman was a very busy woman. Lucretia was a minister and had found her roots in the passion for social justice. Now let me tell you a little bit about why that's important of all Quakers. told you the Quakers had started back in 1650 when, I didn't tell you this, they were started by George and Margaret Fox in northern England. At that time, their beliefs were pretty radical because they believed that everybody was created equally, men and women, and everybody were created equally. So very on, early in the 17th century, Quaker women were given equitable roles. Because they were seen as spiritually equal in the eyes of God. That didn't really relate to the social society so much at the time, but it was spiritually, that's where they got their start. They conducted business meetings, took minutes, negotiated decisions by consensus. And the women were permitted to travel, which is why I said Lucretia Mott was a traveling minister. Women were not only permitted to travel, they were encouraged to travel, to speak their truth, and to publish. All of these things were unheard of in that time, in the 1700s, the 1600s. Many of those values that the Quaker women learned became part of the early women's movement. Lucretia Mott not only attended, she chaired many of the conventions and meetings throughout all those movements for justice. She was known to be capable of dealing with hecklers in a way that was both forceful and yet never angry. She also resisted calling the police to deal with the near riots that almost always happened when they had meetings, because she wanted to use nonviolent tactics instead. Lucretia Mott insisted that women speak up and step into leadership roles, as Quaker women had long been taught to do. In fact, I found this interesting and really felt relevant for today too. She argued that allowing women the right to speak, even if you didn't speak for the majority view. For example, I read the story about Eliza Farham, who was an author and prison reformer, who argued that women were the superior sex and should control men by denying sex, except for procreation. Lucretia diplomatically suggested, let each and all expound their own creed and then let us judge. One of my another favorite Lucretia Mott quote is, peace did not mean the absence of war. It means the arbitration of disputes and justice for all. The Indians, the working class, the blacks, and women. She always saw the relationship between economic exploitation and war, and insisted upon the absolute sacredness of all life. Her husband, James, by the way, was also a strong women's rights activity and a great support. He was said to love to accompany her and love to hear her speak. And most importantly, all the time that she was under attack, he was there for her to lean on. The last Quaker woman I'm going to tell you about is Susan B. Anthony, who you probably heard the most about. Susan B. Anthony, born in 1820, joined the women's rights movement about the mid-1800s. She was seen as the one with organizing skills and willingness to do the legwork. Some of the articles I read about her says that about speaking of legs, she received a lot of abuse for being one of the first women to wear bloomers. As a young woman, Susan B. Anthony, at the age of 17, was collecting signatures for petitions against slavery. She became an agent of the American Anti-Slavery Society in 1856 and spent years promoting the cause, and she lectured widely. Susan B. Anthony and Elizabeth Cady Stanton became an amazing complementary team. In 1868, they began producing a weekly publication called The Revolution that lobbied for women's rights. The newspaper's motto was, men their rights and nothing more, women their rights and nothing less. Seems so basic, doesn't it? And then in 1869, the two founded the National Women's Suffrage Association. Susan B. Anthony took things that matters into her own hands. She was getting restless. In 1872, she voted illegally in a presidential election. She was arrested and fined $100, which she unsuccessfully fought in court, but she never paid the fine. Go, Susan. The women I've told you about have just a few of the wonderful women whose legacies we stand on. There's not time to go through many more of the great women I'd like to tell you about. But another thing that I found that I feel is significant is that it's important to know that they were not all of one mind. Even though they found ways to work together because their goal was towards social justice. and human rights for all. Some were pacifists that believed in nonviolence. Others thought that slavery needed to be brought to an end, even if by violent means. Some believed in using consensus, and some didn't. So there was a lot of difference among the Quaker leaders, but they all believed that their goal was the same. So I feel like we have a lot to learn from these women, and just to leave you with a couple of quotes that float around our Quaker circles today. Because someone asked me what organizations I'm with, and I said, how many hands do you have? Because I'm part of many organizations, and I'm very active with my Quaker community right now, both locally and internationally. And some of the Quaker quotes that we use are, let your lives speak, speak truth to power, and let's see what love can do. Thank you for all the work you do, for making a difference. Thank you for that.
Next up we have Dr. Rita Robinson, who is one of the 2018 inductees into the Maryland Women's Hall of Fame.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm not sure I can call myself going to a path of power, but nevertheless, when they ask me to come and speak about myself in education, that in itself is a little different from me, because I'm usually talking about other people, not about myself. So I'm going to, I'm not really, I think, at the best of me at this point, because now I lost our brother, so my sister and I. So we'll leave it here and going over to the house. He was in hospice, so we knew that it was tenuous. But we were just there last night, and so we got the call this morning on the way over here. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about myself in my path to education. You know, as I look out on the audience here, I'm sure that most people here could relate stories about the importance of education in your life. Okay? So education has always played a major role in my life, and it's very much responsible for my induction into the 2018 Maryland Women's Hall of Fame. So I want you to know that I accepted this honor with deep appreciation and sincere humility, and also the recognition that I stand on the shoulders of many, many women, especially my mom. So let me begin by telling you a little bit about myself. But before I do that, I want to tell you about my mother. Okay? She was the 10th child out of 11. Her oldest siblings, none of them, she was the 10th youngest out of 11. Okay? Her oldest siblings, none of them had ever attended high school. Now, I want to put this in context. My mother was born in 1932. Okay? So I'll give you a feel. All of the oldest siblings put together to send my mom and her younger sister to high school. And guess where she went? Right here in Baltimore, Rockcastle. Some of you may know of that school, Catholic High School. She graduated with honors. She was really a smart lady. And she enrolled in Minor Teachers College. Now, I give you a little story about that. During that time, there were normal schools. There were two normal schools in Washington, D.C. There was Minor Normal School, Wilson Normal School. Wilson was white, and Minor was black. And then later, they became Minor Teachers College and Wilson Teachers College for 4-year colleges. Well, so during her first year, guess what happened? She met her future husband. He was tall, dark, handsome, dancing in her car. And that was the end of college for her. She dropped out of school, got married, and I know that that was a decision she really regretted, because she always felt that she missed something by not, going to college, finishing college. So our home, really, growing up, there were 7 of us. Our home was always filled with a lot of literature. We always went to the library every weekend, got tons of books, and Mom read to us. She would read somewhere so that her throat would be right. She said, I can't read anymore, I gotta stop. And then we would go to bed. And I that was really a nightly ritual for us. So my sister and I, sisters and brothers, we were all born in Washington, D.C., and I was the second oldest in a family of 7. My mother informed me, she used to like to tell the story, that I came into this world on a beautiful fall day in October. So I was named after my mom. Her name was Rita. But she also gave me the middle name of Laverne. And she was fascinated with the French language, and Laverne, of course, is French. At a very young age, at approximately 12, I would say, I really assumed a large part of the nurturing and rearing responsibility of my younger sisters and brothers, because my mother at that time, because of circumstances, became the sole provider for the family and began to work outside the home. I loved, even at that early age, I loved to play school. So I was always teaching and working with my younger brothers and sisters. And during that time, when we were younger, there was no such thing as kindergarten and preschool. We started school in first grade. But with my younger sisters, who happened to be one sitting right here, Carolyn, when they went to school, they knew how to read, write, and math and everything. So, long before they entered first grade. Now, I know you know by this time, but I think you'll recall, right? Okay. So I went to DC Teachers College. And when I was there, mine and Wilson had merged. One school now, DC, called DC Teachers College. DC Teachers College, in their very first year of merging, I'll tell you about my age, I'll tell you this, 1984. And I was one of the very first blacks to go into DC Teachers College. So we all, the group of us, all in the room, and we were told how to act, what to do, and behave in this integrated situation. So, and I also was the first in my family on both sides to graduate from college. So I was the first generation college person. Now, of course, younger sisters, brothers, and I even had a sister who has a doctorate just like myself. Now everybody goes to college, it's just normal. You know, graduate from high school, what's wrong with it? It's the norm now. Now, going back to myself, I got married in 1960. And I married my childhood friend who lived down the street all these years that I was growing up. He left high school, joined the Air Force, and wrote me a letter. And I remember saying to my mom, I wonder why he's writing me. Anyway, we got married. We had 4 children. I had 4 grown children, and I'm very, very proud of it, 4 grandchildren. In fact, this year, we will celebrate our 58th wedding anniversary. So, in terms of education, I really consider myself a lifelong learner. I began my formal career as an elementary school teacher. After that, I was a counselor. Then I was a personnel worker, which is akin to social worker, vice principal, principal, and then director of a number of programs, equity assurance program, staff development, and people services. So I've always been in education. It's always been a love of mine. And my primary emphasis in education was really to make a difference in the lives of children and the people with whom I work. I always said to myself, okay, I'm an elementary school teacher. I got 1 classroom. Maybe if I'm a people personnel worker, I'll be able to reach more children. If I'm a counselor, I'll be able to. It was that kind of thought in my head. So equity and educational achievement were of paramount importance to me. For example, when I was in the system, really implementing Title IX, making sure that it was just not a title, but it really worked. So not just talking about physical education, but talking about academic achievement. You know, who were in those classes? For instance, the AP classes. Who were in other classes where they were underrepresented? Those kinds of things. Making sure that we eliminated. The only thing about Prince George's County Public Schools, that's where my history is. We, at that time, we eliminated every offensive name that high schools had for football teams. So if you look back at our football team, you will never see a football team that has a derogatory for people who doesn't consider it. But we eliminated it. And we worked very hard. And the principals worked with us to make sure that they were taken care of. Worked very hard to implement a homeless policy. Now people understand, like, with homeless, you just automatically go to school wherever you live. But at one time, that was not the case. These boys and girls were not allowed in school or couldn't go to school. Looking at putting in place procedures that actually work for sexual harassment and sexual abuse, sexual harassment, discrimination. Putting those policies in place and actually making it work. Looking at equity policies. The equity policy that we put in place actually became a model for all the other LSSs in Europe, those school systems. Now, what I realized quite early as an educator is that I needed to become, and I think this is for all of us, and I think people, you're here because that you know that you need to become actively involved in educational, political, social, and the cultural aspect of society if you want to make a difference. You really can't take yourself out of it. So involvement is really a must. And I remember the words, and I really remember reading Nelson Mandela saying, education is the most powerful weapon that you can use to change the world. So sharing our experiences on the state and national levels was really an outgrowth from my professional involvement in many organizations. The Organization for Women, Girl and Women Terrorism Center, a lot of other professional organizations like ACA, World Council Association, names. Now, I can go on and on about those associations, but it helped to expand my views on many issues of importance and concern, and especially with people who are most vulnerable in our society. Even though at this time in my life I've cut back on a number of things, there's still a lot of things that I do. I'm a licensed professional counselor. I have my own private practice, and I began my private practice after I retired from Richmond County Public Schools. I do a lot of pro bono work with my counseling organization because I think that's the way of doing that. I think I've gotten so much out of life. I currently work with an adjunct professor at Boise State University. Although I have to tell you, I only teach one class a semester. That's my limit. In 2016, I really got a nice surprise. I was appointed to the Board of Trustees for the St. George Community College. And one of my latest accomplishments, which I'm very proud of, is I wrote a book called Daughters and Dads Ties That Bind. And I really enjoyed writing it, and it has given me a lot of pleasure. So I continue to be active in some organization, but I want to close by saying having passion and commitment for what you believe is really the key to personal fulfillment and happiness. And I always say, don't take yourself too seriously. Really, truly. Do what is right, not easy. So I encourage you to put your heart, mind, and soul into even the smallest act, because this is the secret of success. Never stop learning, because life never stops teaching. I'm still learning at age 81.